And we're back with a Back Arrow episode.
I'm always on the back foot
of KHANTEHNT.
KHANTEHNT!
Hey, but first go to subscribe.com/KHANTEHNT and get all our bonus episodes for a paltry $10 a month. We've got so many episodes now, you will be delighted by all of them, undoubtedly. Also, watch this ad. Hey kids, want to impress your friends and induce sexual arousal in your neighbors? KHANTEHNT t-shirts!
Wow, I've never been more impressed in my life with anything!
KHANTEHNT now has official t-shirt merchandise, and you can get yourself some by clicking below the video or in the Teespring link in the description. With designs like the classic KHANTEHNT logo.
Or this!
I've got a shirt on too.
Or this. KHANTEHNT! In these trying times, why not tell the world you'd rather be watching Eurocant from inside your cozy can tent? They're a great way to support the show and share your KHANTENT pride. So get out there, wear them, and get into KHANTENT. KHANTENT!
心配するな。俺は強い。多分な。なんだ、てめえの信念は。なんだろうな。ま、今からゆっくり考えるさ。
So here we are, Back Arrow, one of these seasonal shows. This one had a little bit of buzz around it. Not particularly well liked on Mal, I noticed. Had like a 5 point something. Interested to hear what our opinions are about this.
Yeah, this show, I haven't seen many people talking about it or anything, but we became curious about it simply because it's written by Kazuki Nakashima, who has pretty much only written Gurren Lagann and Kill La Kill anime-wise.
And Promare.
And Promare. And directed by Taniguchi Goro, who has done Code Geass, fucking Infinite Revice, S-Cry-Ed.
You know, it's funny. I felt as I was watching this various moments, at times I was like, this is like, you know, I knew Nakashima. I knew Nakashima wrote this, so I was already thinking, like, okay, Gurren Lagann themes, I'll be looking for those in here. I felt Gurren Lagann. I felt Code Geass. I felt S-Cry-Ed in here. I felt like all these influences coming through.
And Gun X Sword. That is another one. That was one he did in 2004 that is tonally very similar to this. But to get right into my impressions of this show, I think this show is very okay. And it's sad because that's not something I'd say about any of those other shows that we just named. Those are all, at the very least, really interesting. Like even Gun X Sword, which I don't think is a particularly good show, is like a fusion of like Western elements into a robot adventure show. And there's even some of that in this too, but even that one just felt more like over the top and immediately stylized than this did. This show, I guess if I have a question for this show, who is this for? Who do you think this show is for exactly?
Yeah, that's a fair question. It feels a little juvenile at times. And like I noticed, they always go out of their way. They have the lines when, you know, there's this thing when two robots fight normally and someone loses, they die. You get a lot of lines of, quick, take off your band so you don't die at the end of the fight. So we're like, oh, okay, this is one of these shows where almost nobody is dying as things go, even enemy troops. So it feels a little juvenile in that way. There are jokes throughout that lighten the mood quite a bit. And the plot is nothing to be overly impressed by. It's a very kind of by the numbers, explore the world, meat and potatoes. But if I had to say who this show is for, this guy right here.
I thought that might be possible. I was kind of hoping that would be the case because, well, and even though I just said that, I also think that as long as this is for somebody, which I now know it is, this is what anime should be like. Because I think that so many shows try too hard to have like a super, like Decadence is a good example of a show that like had this amazing idea at the start, but then like when the plot just kind of becomes straightforward, it feels like it's a disappointment as opposed to this where if anything complicated happened, it would be like, oh wow, this is much more than I expected. But like the expectations are set low because it doesn't have to be anything more than a fun adventure show with like interesting characters.
That's what's making it work for me better because the story is simple, straightforward, meat and potatoes is a great way to put it. But it's on top of that, there's little writing flair that reminds me of like Gurren Lagann moments, or like S-Cry-Ed is probably like the closest, but with some of the jokes of like a Gurren Lagann thing. I can feel that Nakashima stuff coming through there. Whereas I'm like, you know what? There were moments when I laughed my ass off in here more than once because the jokes are keeping me enthralled.
Give me one good example of
great example. I wrote down several jokes that really got me. Okay, there's one aspect that in the first episode, first of all, the episode ends episode 1.
By the way, we talked about episode 1 on the seasonal cast.
Right, yes, we did.
In case
yes,
anyone's wondering why we would be like, oh, at the end of episode 1, yeah.
Feel free to check back at that. So episode 1, why is the name of the show Back Arrow? It's because one of the villagers who the main character protects for a while, he's a no-name guy, he came from a distant land, he's got some weird destiny probably, and they're like, you're just a fucking idiot, you're naked, you won't put on the clothes we keep trying to give you, sure you defend us, but you're a Bakayaro, you're a fucking idiot.
A Bakayaro.
His name, he's like, that's it, I'll call myself, mishearing it, Back Arrow, because he's a stupid idiot.
That's great.
That already, I'm like, I get the tone now, I like this is winning me along. So that was a tone-setting moment for much of it. Even before that, in that episode, when his weird metal capsule lands in the middle of this village, what does this village do? They don't pull like a Code Geass and like freak out and like, oh my god, researchers need to assign it. They don't pull like a S-Cry-Ed and everyone gets terrified and oh my god, we're all gonna die. They light a fire under it, are cooking it, and dance around it saying, we're gonna eat, we're gonna eat. And then when a human being jumps out of it, the kids unthinkingly just bite him and say, it's food! Hilarious.
Part of the first
That's
episode.
a fucking joke is what that is, and I laughed when I saw it. So it's the comedy that's keeping me attached to the show, as well as it not being like pretentious with overly complex characters. So it's winning for me. I've got more jokes I'll talk about later. But
I like that this is a show where I wasn't struggling to follow the plot, which is sometimes true on this show.
It would be hard to do, yeah.
And I think this is probably made for the younger audience in mind, first and foremost, because it is so simple, very brightly colored.
I had a lot of moments of baby's first politics happening here, which is fine, fine.
Again, it's not a bad thing. We both obviously love kids shows plenty fine, as do you, audience, you Naruto fan. But like, you ReZero fan.
Remember when Rock Lee took off the weights, bros? I remember when he took off the weights.
Yeah, this show feels like it came from the 2000s. It feels like it stepped out of a time capsule because, like, they don't make mecha shows for kids anymore, or like almost at all. Like, basically the only mecha shows that get made anymore are Gundam, and usually it's movies made for longtime fans. So, like, seeing a show that is trying to be like a broadly accessible, I would imagine it's probably aired in the morning time. I guess they don't do the clock thing anymore, because it has the vibe like Gurren Lagann or Eureka 7, which both would have the time at the top of the screen always. I don't know if they're just not doing that in Japan anymore, but this feels like that kind of show. Feels like a good old Sunday morning clock show.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't blame anyone. If you watch the show and you're like, this plot is not doing much for me, I'm not interested, that's fine. It's the comedy and the simplicity and the straightforwardness. And frankly, there is a excellent pacing where enough new information, it's like this is the opposite of Decadence, kind of. Decadence put a lot of thought into like, oh my god, what's like our mind-blowing premise going to be? And who cares about the characters that much? Just move it along, it doesn't really matter. This is the opposite. The premise could not be simpler. Like, okay, they're in a trapped-in world. There was a little bit of thought into it that's kind of provocative, and I'm at least curious about it. It's got at least that element going for it. But it's like the characters being funny and having actually funny dialogue. I definitely feel that when a show is in Japanese and I'm reading subs, it's a little bit harder for it to win me over with jokes than like in a dub typically. There's less like witty repartee and stuff. It doesn't come across as good. But this show is maintaining it because I think it is that much better, or maybe more deliberate or obvious. Maybe it's the childish element that's doing it for me. But it's keeping me engaged consistently, and I want to see what's happening.
The comedy started working for me when we got to episode 6, and they had the pretty boy farm.
Yeah.
And like, this is the whole episode is actually about a pretty boy farm.
Yeah.
Where like, these boys have like, they've had their minds like altered and fucked with by one of the governments.
Yep.
Is it the government that they are actively fighting against, or the other one?
This is an independent province within the larger nation of Luto. Okay. That's the full political rundown.
So yeah, these pretty boys, they're all, like, when I say boys, they're like young. They're all like
they're
teenagers,
pretty young, teenagers, yeah.
So it's like a bunch of young men who literally glisten like Twilight vampires.
Yes.
And they've all got like the Shota personalities and everything. But like, they're in a real, like, they're in
They're
kind
really
of like the
being
most
human trafficked and fucked with. Yeah.
They're slaves. They are like really sad. They're really in a
Mm-hmm.
fucky situation, and like, you know, the heroes become sympathetic and try to help them. And one of them rises, and his conviction was, I'll survive even if it's only me.
Right.
And let's talk about that. Conviction is the theme of this show.
Yes. Yes.
Spelled out very blatantly. This is definitely Kazuki Nakashima, somebody who likes the themes to be like fully saturating every element of his shows, and I would say Taniguchi Goro as well. Both of them, like, this show feels so much like both of them that I can't even tell where one of them begins and the other ends. Like it really is like a match made in heaven in a way. But yeah, the idea that the robots are powered by conviction kind of reminds me of Star Driver, where they were powered by libido.
I didn't know that about that.
But
of course, it's similar to spiral power a little bit. That's like willpower stuff. It's a very common thing.
But it's that everybody specifically has a conviction that is like their personal code of, like, we have the green-haired girl whose thing is like, I'll make it somehow.
Yeah.
The conviction thing hasn't been fleshed out as much as I would have liked by this point.
Yeah.
I want characters to talk more about their convictions, how they work, and why they have them.
Yeah.
But that's why in episode 6 we do get this great moment where one of the pretty boys, his thing is like, I'll make it even if it's just me. And he feels guilty about this being his conviction because he has a brother and you know, all these friends at this farm, and he's like, how dare I want, which that sort of made me think, like, okay, can you affect your conviction? Like, do you choose your conviction? Is it?
It doesn't seem.
Are
to
you
be.
stuck with it after you have it?
It's clearly defined by your person. There's no answer to this question. You know, nobody knows.
It's just I never expected there to be a character who's like tormented by their own conviction. It's like that episode of My Little Pony where the one didn't like his cutie mark, and you're like, well, wait, that goes against everything I know about cutie marks.
But the one counter element to this, so we've at least established you have to have a conviction, even if it's generic loyalty to the Empire, and thus like everyone has like the same mech. Back Arrow is different, or Arrow is different. He appears to have no conviction, and this sets him apart. And this, like, it hasn't been fleshed out what that means, but it means something. And they're going to get back to that eventually, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I like that the way that this kid's issue with his conviction resolves is that, like, he figures out a plan, they go through with it, and Arrow tells him, like, well, you know, you wouldn't be able to help other people if you don't keep yourself alive. So your conviction is perfectly fine. Like, don't think of it as, oh, just because, you know, I'll survive no matter what doesn't mean everyone else has to die.
This is another thing. Man, when I watch these shows, there's a certain thing I like to see, and it's just like unbridled positivity. And like, this is such a great show for kids to watch, in my mind. First of all, it's hilarious, so it'll keep them engaged. Huey's Law and all that. But then, like, what's Back Arrow's personality like? He like goes so far out of his way to pay his debts and like help people who helped even a little bit. There's this thing where at the beginning, like even here, the village begins betraying him like immediately because his presence causes them problems. They're like, bro, you need to leave the village, please. Before he leaves the village, he doesn't actually leave, but like he leaves a giant pile of hunted animals that he went out of his way to get for them because he felt he owed them. And he's just like, nobody asked him to do that. He chose to do it because he's a good guy and he wants to help people who are nice to him, even when they're actively telling him, please fuck off, you're causing us too many problems. They later betray him, as we see happening in literally this shot with my man Bit, the conniving piece of shit.
This is a great shot. Look at that.
I know. Everyone's in the background. They're all complicit, and Bit here is just being such a fucking piece of shit. You know, doing what he has. They're currently turning over Arrow to like the local government, so that they will get moved to a new block of land because their village was destroyed due to this airship that appeared and stuff. And this is all caused by the appearance of Arrow in the village. And what's Arrow's response to that? Arrow, this reminds me a lot of Luffy in One Piece, actually. He's like, look, I understand. You're doing what you got to do to get by. Your village was just destroyed. I was a part of that. I don't blame you for trying to make it in your way. I wish you the best. I'm going to find my own way to escape and do my own thing. And you know, obviously, you don't want to be somebody who just gets pushed around by people, but Back Arrow has no problem finding his way out of these situations. He's such a Chad, and he's so positively minded that he makes his way out of whatever pickle he finds himself in, and this is what attracts, like, some of the Empire people to, like, join his cause, because he's such a badass Chad all the time.
So what's our silver-haired boy's name?
We've got two characters that are kind of a competing deuteragonist sort of thing, and that's Shu and Kai, Shu being the silver silver-haired one.
So Shu, we meet in episode 2, he immediately takes an interest in Back Arrow, and he basically introduces himself as like, hi, I'm a hyper-intelligent sociopath.
Yes.
I'm gonna help you all. Like,
Yep.
And like, I fucking love the way this guy talks. Because I do a lot of the same thing of like contradicting yourself deliberately to win an argument and then laughing about it afterwards and then telling the person that you did it to that you did it. Like, I love that. He's
just so much smarter than everybody.
Devu once had a video about Ichigo Marshmallow. I think it's probably still up. That's compares the character Miyu's face to Cartman. This guy has the Cartman face.
Yeah.
The
we've got him up here. Right there.
Like, yeah, I'm just in town, you know? Like, oh, I'm just hanging out, guys. Like, I don't know what's going on. Like, just very innocent, very wide-eyed, you know? But, like, everything he's thinking is completely conniving.
Well, yeah, this is the thing. He's contrasted with his big friend Kai, who's like, this guy's the brain, that guy's the muscle. They came up together. We get some backstory about them. Pretty generic, but it was good. These two have, like, a plan to fix the Empire. But all of a sudden, there's a new game in town that involves... what if we don't have to work and change all these little political pieces? What if we can just smash the system wide open with my man Back Arrow?
Yeah, it is interesting that the empire that they work within has the stance of the walls that surround our world are basically like akin to a god. To think of going beyond these walls is like a great sacrilege. You must die.
These are definitionally the boundaries of all that exists. Don't even think or mention there's anything past
So
them.
up until this point, Shu and Kai have been in the mentality of like, we'll rise to the top of this empire and change things. And now, like, he immediately is like, actually, maybe this guy can just topple this empire and we don't have to do any of that.
He talks about being from beyond the wall. So his very existence is a challenge to that system, and he's got the power to back it up already with the things that he's bringing to town. So... yeah, I love seeing it, and the way, see, that Pretty Boy episode was great. The way he hears that kid say, like, oh, my conviction is I'll make it through, even if it's just me. Like, how do you want to interpret that? Do you want to get depressed and think about what a piece of shit you are, that, like, this is your conviction? Or do you want to do what Back Arrow does and change the fucking game and reframe it so that that's a strength and you use it to do good things? Don't let them define how you need to behave or what you are or any of that shit. Be like Back Arrow and change it enough so that it's stuff that it's making the future that you want to get to happen. And that's the kind of attitude that I love to see in heroes. And even though Back Arrow's like an idiot, he has that core good value inside him, and he's making everyone around him like a better person, and I love seeing it.
Yeah, I like the dynamic that both of our sort of deuteragonists, because he really does become like
he's the
as
second
much
boy.
of a main character as the guy.
I was almost thinking that like he's the Rossyu to that guy's Kamina, but no, he's actually more like the what's the gay dude from Gurren Lagann? Not Liron. Is it Liron?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the Liron to the Kamina in that he's just as crazy. He's just the smart crazy, not the bold and courageous crazy.
I think what makes them both great is they're so unpredictable and untrustworthy that like Arrow he's untrustworthy in that he's erratic and he's just going to do whatever his gut is telling him at that moment. So like you can't formulate a plan that he's going to stick to if the plan changes, which is also true of Shu, except that he's just changing plan. Like he's not suddenly changing his behavior out of instinct, but out of like calculation and constantly reworking and reframing everything. So yeah, they are kind of doing the same thing from opposite approaches, and it makes them good pair. I love this character. I feel it's weird in a way that we had established the village and all that first and got onto this. At the end of episode 2, the village gets destroyed. Everybody has to jump on a white base type, what is it called? Do you remember?
A dreadnought. It's called because their village is called Edger. It's like the Shin Edger or something like that. Oh God, I can't remember. I wrote it down. Hang on. It's the Edger, Shin Edger, Plain Edger, whatever it is. A dreadnought.
It's a white base / Gurren.
It's the Gurren dot. Yeah.
So like again, these are both writer and director have done several other shows with white base traveling.
What's white base from?
Gundam.
I don't know what that is. Okay, I'll learn one day.
The original Gundam. It's the one that all the other ones are copying.
Gotcha.
White base. Macross would be a good comparison too, but and to use Macross, because like as we said, this show is simple and straightforward. Like
there it is.
Macross is a very dense, complex show where in that one, a whole society gets trapped on a ship, But by episode 6, they've like rebuilt a town inside of it, and like there's a lot more fleshing out of that world, and that's what I think is missing the most from this show so far, is that like all these villagers get on the ship. There has been one shot of the interior villagers in the ship, like during a scene where they're having like a conversation, and like it's supposed to be like a big wake-up call realization moment to the people on the ship, like, oh, your home is truly fucked and you really have no choice but to stay on the move. And like there's like one shot of all these villagers going like, oh, and like that's it. And I'm like, what are they all doing in there? Like throughout the other episodes, could have used more fleshing out of
the
these
villagers
people.
themselves are not a big character. There's like a few representatives that just
and even those representatives, like we have you know, tsundere girl and nice girl.
Yeah.
Neither of them has really gotten to do much.
Well, the tsundere girl is the pilot of the mecha originally.
That is the best thing. She like attaches herself to the head of the thing and becomes like the mast. That's fun. But yeah, I just like, I guess I just thought it was an odd choice to introduce so many characters at the start, and then by episode 3, we're jumping into Shu and Kai's backstory, and like, they are way more important to the next few episodes than any of the villagers are. So,
well, I mean, I understand your point. Shu kind of is actually more like, I guess, virile of all characters. He's like, he worked for the enemy, you know, Gurren Lagann character, obviously, who it sort of joins up eventually. That's later on in Gurren Lagann. But here, he's like, okay, I'm going to help you guys because we're going to change the game. There are deeper truths beyond what I've been instructed that I need to deviate from if I'm going to, you know, help the world change and improve and whatnot. And all the villagers are not that important. And I really don't have an issue with that because it's not like they're built up to be important outside of a few characters. So like in Gurren Lagann, like we never got a backstory about Attenborough, the guy who hits the buttons and shoots the rockets really fast. And in no way did I ever think that that was bad. I thought that that was just enough of knowledge about the character.
I guess I hope that some of these characters will be, like, Attenborough's memorable because he smashes the buttons and everything.
He is memorable. The nameless villagers are not memorable. So that's a distinction.
And, like, there's, like, one of the villagers, like, is a guy who wears glasses and is smarter, and, like, so...
The doctor, yeah.
There's, like, a scene where Shu says, like, I'll explain to you because you'll actually understand. And, like,
right.
That guy, I could see them turning him into a Rosyu later. Like...
That guy's clearly got backstory involving one of the nations. He's a mysterious doctor, so he'll be doing something like that.
I want to know more about all these extra shipmates so that I can care more. Like, so far, Back Arrow, I mean, good protagonist, but he is like just a hammer you throw at things
that's
type
correct.
of hero. Shu is the actually interesting one with like real motivations and backstory, thought going into what he's doing. His relationship with Kai is actually a thing that like has some emotional gravitas to it.
Yeah, and the plan that was put in, first of all, when he breaks from Kai's like, we had a bond. We had scars that we gave ourselves to show that like we were gonna change the system in this specific way. And you're changing that now. The guy's like, mine healed, lol, I don't have it anymore. Actually, it was a ruse. He had put like this is just a metaphorical representation that our bond is gone by putting a patch over the thing to make it look like it healed, to represent how he's changed the game. And see, that's the metaphor going on here. They're changing the game. They're not letting the old rules dictate what they do. And I would never claim that it's complex or deep particularly, but it's executing on the premise well in a way that other shows so far for me have failed to, while also being entertaining consistently. So I really like what's happening and want to see more.
I'm very curious to see where this is going. Like,
episode 12 isn't out yet, but is about to be out. So like we're gonna finish up the show along with everybody else.
Is it just gonna be 12 episodes?
I haven't double checked that actually.
This feels like it should be a 24 episode show.
It could be.
And I would be surprised if it's not, just because it's so slow moving. Like. Yeah, I hope it's 24 episodes.
Yeah, me too.
I would need that amount to really feel like this was going to be fleshed out to a degree that I'd remember it, you know?
I'll have to double check that now, because I just assumed it was 12 until right now. By the way, I think we've said most of what we have to say about it. I just want to relate 2 jokes that were particularly good that these are the things that like kept me fully engaged. Like, okay, craft, thought was put into the show. A writing man made this, not just some assembly line. There's this joke of how Back Arrow, like why is he so attached to this village when he gets there? He's naked completely when he gets there. They keep trying to give him this underwear. The nice green hair girl is like Atlee or something. Please, this was my father's. Please, take his underwear and wear this. After putting it on in episode 2, he begins to say, like, I inherited the spirit of the sheriff of this town, so I will defend it because of the underwear ceremony that he went on. That's mentioned multiple times. Every time I smiled and laughed, because I was like, that's such a funny idea. Second joke is that when episode 6, once Big Brain Man has joined the squad, oh wait, where'd he go? Over here. He is like, okay, I need to make my captors. I just betrayed my people. Why would they trust me? I know what I'll do. I will tell this guy, I will appeal to his ego by calling him Admiral and just saying that he's smarter than me. And then at any time that I need to get permission, I will just fluff his ego by calling him Admiral and asking permission. And he's such a dunce bit that he will just go along with it.
That kid probably is the most like actual character out of all of them.
Kinda, yeah. I mean, he had this arc of like...
He's the fuck up. He's the Attenborough.
He is the Attenborough, that's true. Like, he sort of joined the enemy team because he was like, my people here, like, it was his plan to turn in the guy or whatever. I feel bad about it. My people don't want me anymore. I'll like face the fire with that and leave and join the military. That military then betrays their group. So he's like, oh, I have to fight them and go back now. So he's already got some drama going on. But like his ego here about being like the stupid Admiral guy. Like in episode 6, there's just a little dialogue as they're flying somewhere in the background as he is flying this guy. And this guy, he says to him, like, why, wait, I'm an admiral. Why am I steering the ship while you're riding in the passenger? Shouldn't, like, you work for me, right? And he's like, oh, well, an admiral takes the life of his people in his hands, so that's why you're driving. And he's like, of course that's why. And just every time they keep referencing this admiral thing, I fucking laugh. These are good jokes that are well crafted, and it's really endearing me to the show. And I can't wait to see what these two crazy lads get up to. And I want to see more. It's great.
Endearing is a good word. Another thing I want to mention, fashion-wise, because our main characters are in like American Wild West kind of
They're cowboy themed,
like
yeah.
Cartoon cowboys,
Yeah.
and then the Empire is all Chinese, you know, this stuff looking like he just came out of Mo Dao Zushi. So I like that. I like the cultural
and the other kingdom or
going on
whatever,
there.
the Republic or whatever it is like Victorian era. I don't know, like London garb. I don't know what it is.
That's a very director
Prussian.
Taniguchi Goro approach to characterization and style.
See, that shit is pure Code Geass right there.
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
right, okay, I know what that is. So it's funny to feel all these influences. And again, not particularly like blown away by the writing, but there's enough of a hook. What's beyond that wall? Why can't we ever try to go beyond it? He came from it. It's like 5,000 feet tall. The design of the wall is actually kind of cool. So when you see it in the distance with all these little like boxes on it, it's like, what the fuck is this wall? Why does it, because this is kind of the main plot, why does it give gifts to the people inside of itself every like, month or whatever? All these are interesting questions I want to know about. And I'm sure it'll get to it.
I think what makes this show work is that it has all those influences and it's not trying to top them. It's not trying to be the new hotness. It's like, let's boil all that down. Like get all the good things from all these and like make a really just straightforward fun show out of it. And yeah, I think this is a show that would be very easy to enjoy for anyone who likes this genre. Like there's nothing that's off-putting about it necessarily.
The simplicity of the
very
plot.
easy to watch.
The simplicity of the plot might not do enough for people who are coming off of watching Pat Labor 2. Available now in our bonus episodes.
Despite the fact that you love both, I wouldn't say that this is like comparable in genre.
Well, to be fair, love is a bit strong. It's that I was consistently entertained. I would give this like probably like a light, strong 7 to light 8. I struggled to give it an 8 maybe, but perhaps it qualifies because I had big belly laughs multiple times, and that's fairly rare for anime to do. So I've been having a lot of fun watching it.
I don't feel ready to score it yet. I think there's so much potential in what it could be, and there's also so much potential in how it could fuck up that I would want to reserve judgment for now.
If it just keeps me laughing, that's all I want. Generally finish the plot however you need to. I don't expect it to be fucking philosophy degree where I change my whole understanding of the world. Entertain me, keep the plot going, and I'll be satisfied. Well, that's it, everybody. We'll be back to talk about at least the next 6 episodes next week, probably. So keep your eyes peeled if you've been watching Back Arrow, and tell everybody to watch this fucking show, because it's a lot better than some of the trash that we've been watching. Imagine watching ReZero instead of Back Arrow. Imagine that world.
It's so funny because I know there's no chance this will ever be as popular as ReZero.
That's true. People want different things out of shows. I understand. ReZero is, it's got... Fuck you if you like ReZero. That's all I have to say. All right. Subscribestar.com/KHANTENT, everybody. Support me and my hatred of ReZero on this show. $10 for all our bonus episodes. And also go to Twitter, go to Discord, talk at all the fun things that we do. Here's something else. Oh yeah, t-shirts. We sell t-shirts. That Eurocamp one is pretty choice. And also that Titan Week one to remember the good old days. And also a clip at the end of the episode. Okay.